Gotta close the mouth. Don't forget. Okay. So Max and I want to come on here and say he's got a ton of energy. I can feel it. We are diffusing that energy. Yes, we are. Okay, Max, ready to say what we're going to say? Okay. So, yeah, see how that works? So I came on here to tell you guys to really listen to the things that light you up and to pay attention to not just your intuition, but also the nudges, which is your intuition. But you know what I mean? Like the impulses, I don't know why, but scenarios, those are the things that you want to pay attention to because you don't know where they lead. You can never know where they lead because your mind can't even fathom. It's like, I get glimpses of the future. I get glimpses of situations, but this is a whole different it's a whole other level, I should say, of magic and miracles and synchronicities. So I had the nudge to go do this. So I get asked, if you guys don't know, I'm one of the top Google reviewers. I have, I think 54 million views on my Google reviews now. And I did it as a pay it forward contribution incentive because I love that other people do it for me. So if I'm looking to go somewhere, I love that people leave reviews and I can look like, okay, what do I want to, what should I do? What should I not do? What should I avoid? Where should I go? So I really appreciate that. I also appreciate paying it forward to businesses that do, that give excellent service and experiences. I really appreciate that. So I want it to be a win-win and get back to them. So it's my contribution, and the ripple that's created has been really beautiful. But I get solicited to do reviews of restaurants and places and experiences because of that. So I get offered many, many different ones, and I kind of just trust my intuition to kind of guide me to the ones that I'll enjoy or that will be a win-win. And so I got offered to do this one tonight, and I was just like, it's at a hotel restaurant in a place that's like, it's not far. It was like 20 miles. It's not crazy, but I was just, it wouldn't be somewhere that I would normally like be excited to go. But I had this nudge to go, so I went. And the requirements were, it was an integrity review to pay attention to how the bartender handles the cash, and to order food and one drink and it could be anything, like any food and any kind of drink, and to see whether they ring it in, what they do with the cash scenario, and to pay attention to how he's also handling cash with other, patrons. So, okay. So I go and I immediately sit down, and there's this woman there, and she orders a very, let's just say, stiff drink. She orders like whatever the highest amount of alcohol, and then she's like, can you add another shot? and I'm not judging, but I'm also just kind of like feeling into her energy. And we started this conversation, and it was one of those beautiful conversations that you could never imagine that could unfold. She owns a spa in a place that she doesn't like to live, but she feels like it's her duty, it's her obligation to serve her clients because they ask specifically for her. And she loves to travel, and she loves the ocean, and she would rather live somewhere, because this is a place in the Midwest. And so we have this conversation that really, she gets lit up, and she understands, and it's just like this very channeled from her higher self conversation, telling her to follow her heart, to do the things that matter to her, because there's more for her. That's why she's being called. And so then she, her husband comes, and they have reservations to go somewhere. And so she thanks me. She's like, are you going to be around, or you're staying here at the hotel? And I said, no. And so she's like, can I get your number? And she's like, you're like the most amazing. I want, how is this what you do for a living? And it was just a beautiful, beautiful connection. And she says to me, she's like, you're the angel that I was praying for. And I said, well, thank you. Like, it's my highest honor. Then as she leaves, another gentleman comes up, and he's maybe intoxicated, maybe on something, I'm not quite sure, but he's very, like, not aggressive, but he says, if I'm here, I'm going to drink. If you're going to drink, you're going to drink. If you're going to F, you're going to F. And then he looks at me, and I was like, if you're going to duck, you're going to duck. I don't know. I'm just like, what do you say to that? And I can just see his energy, that he's really suffering. I can just see in his energetic field that he's really suffering. And also the other woman, she wasn't suffering, but she definitely had some heavy thoughts. I could feel that and see that. So he orders a very, again, I guess something double short or something, like what I would assume would be a very strong drink. And I just get the nudge from his guides and my guides to really be present with him. And if he engages in conversation, and he did. And so I was very present with him. And the conversation was just one of the most beautiful exchanges you could imagine, where, he was there. And by the way, this is also synchronous. Both of them were there to go to Mexico for needs. So the woman was her and her husband were going to Tijuana for dental work. And he was going there for a psychedelic retreat to treat his addiction and his PTSD and his trauma and many other things. So he was going to go to an institute, which I actually am familiar with because of the research from Stanford, and for ibogaine treatments that help people with addiction. I've researched this because of some of the foster kids and some other situations that I've learned that have been really helpful for people with addiction and PTSD. And so I was actually feeling like this was a really powerful process that was going to help him. And he was too, but he'd already screwed it up. So the one thing they will not tolerate is if you you can't do any like recreational drugs, I guess, before you go there. And he had been doing cocaine and had a pretty strong addiction to cocaine, from what I gather from our conversation. And so they sent him back to San Diego after they drug tested him and said, you can't. And he threw a big fit and was really, really aggressive and mean to the people at the clinic. But they were really loving and still very accepting and very encouraging. And it changed him, and he stuck around. And so he goes back after the amount of time that the drugs need to clear his system. And what he said to me, he says, I was offered cocaine 3 times today. And I said something to him, and I said, in my entire life, I've never been offered cocaine. Why do you think that is? And he was just like, he couldn't even fathom. And I was like, my entire life, I've never done cocaine, and I've never been offered cocaine. I've heard of people. When I worked in Florida, it's funny that I rubbed my nose when I say this. When I worked in Florida, somebody asked me if I had a bump, and I thought it was a hair tie. I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, oh, what? And then somebody later was like, oh no, she wanted a bump of cocaine. And I was like, oh, and I'm like, I was, I'm aware of people when they're on drugs, and I was aware that she was on something, but I didn't, I just assumed that she was she was drunk or she was on I never questioned, she's high on something. I never questioned what they're high on. So, I don't know, that's not in my realm of proximity. And I said that to him. I said, you understand? And he says, no, I understand because I researched, I understand quantum physics. And he says, you entanglement. And he starts talking about quantum physics. And I said, absolutely. And I said, that's why you have it active. And of course, it's more likely, when it's active within you, then it's going to be, that is what you are receptive to. So I share these stories. I know this is getting in there and it's long, but I share this tonight because it's such an example of how important our thoughts are. And also the importance, I want to also say this. So he had been praying for help, and he came across the study that then led him to this institute that does the ibogaine. And he had done the research about all the people, 90% of people have 100% healing and never want to touch whatever drug or substance they have addiction to. 10% like 100% have or 90% have 100% recovery. The 10% have like a secondary where it's 90% recovery after that. So it's like pretty high success rate. And that's true. I have read the studies about this. So he really believed that, and his family had paid for him to go. And he was really squabbling in the fact, like, if he didn't figure it out and he couldn't make it there, that he would be disappointing everybody. And so after the conversation, I was like, you know, like, you've got this. Like, I see you powerfully, like, changing lives after this. Like, this, who you know you are is now being revealed more and more. Like, you've never been less than, but this is just you allowing your light to be brighter. That's all. And so I gave my number. And I told the bartender, I was like, don't let him get into trouble. And he was like, I got you. Like, I'm not going to let him. He's like, he can drink, and that's all he gets to do. And I was like, exactly. And then he said something like, well, weed is legal too, and I'm allowed to have that. I was like, I don't even, like, I'm trying to tell him, like, just sit with yourself for a while, feel your stuff, you know? And I said that I had the conversation. I said, have you ever let yourself just feel everything that you need to feel? And he said, no, I've been so numb for so long, I don't even know what it's like to feel. So here's my takeaway. There are a few things that we had in that conversation, that he was this close to taking somebody that had offered him coke. He was this close to calling them and just doing it that night. And he was coming down to the bar to get a drink, to build up his courage, to really figure out, like, what to do. And so because of our conversation, whether it actually delays him or keeps him from doing it, he made a commitment to me that if he had that thought, if he was going to call that person, that he would call me first. That was the promise. Whether he does it or not, I don't know. But he did say to me the same thing that the girl said to me. I prayed for you. I prayed for an angel to help me, and you came. And I'm not saying I'm not an angel, but I do feel like all of us have that ability to answer a prayer for somebody else. And this has happened to me so many times in my life, as I trust my intuition and follow my impulses and follow my highest excitement, whatever you want to call it, where I've been in these conversations with a complete stranger where they just needed to hear one thing that you have to say to them, whatever that is, whatever I feel called to say, whatever the story is. And there were so many things in this conversation with both of them tonight, that there were many things that was said that impacted both of us, not just them, but me as well. And I feel like we're all meant for that in our own way. Like, we're here for a reason, and we all know we have a purpose. We all know we have our unique expression, our unique calling. And it's not just to be one thing. That's not what I'm saying. Like, you're not here to be like one thing. It's just to be you. That's all it is. It's just every day in your life to be you as fully as you can. And that means just honor the nudges and the impulses, and to do your best in honoring that. And not every day is going to be perfect. I get that. Trust me, I get that. But every day that you can do it, just know that it not just makes your light brighter, but your light then goes and then helps everybody else light their light to make it brighter too. And when it comes to the whole picture, the more of us that have our lights turned all the way up, then the darkness can't exist. And even though the darkness is valid, and it will always exist at some level, when the light's on, you don't see the darkness, right? And so that's what that was tonight, because he really felt the light on, and she really felt her light on. And I just got to be a mirror for them, to show them their own light. We all get to do that for everybody and anybody at any point, when you're open to it and when you're willing to do that. So I encourage you to follow your impulses, to listen to your heart. It's always guiding you. And I love you.